on this Monday night.
There was no political interference.
A hearing in a BC courthouse leaves Canada caught in the middle of two global powers. Ottawa moves to reassure China, why sources tell CBC it's not working.
There's no more serve and protect. We don't care about that no more. It's like I'm scared for my life.
Serious questions tonight about racial profiling in Canada's biggest city, the community calling for change, and why it's not just a Toronto problem.
A Canadian mass murder case gone cold.
So you want this solved?
It would be nice to know, or why they did it.
The results of our investigation into the bombing of Canadian Pacific Flight 21. This is The National.
It's a diplomatic dispute with potentially serious implications for global trade. Tonight, that's put all the focus on a Vancouver court as Huawei executive Meng Wanzhou's waits to hear if she will be released from prison. Day 2 of her bail hearing has wrapped, but there is still no decision. Meng was arrested December 1st during a layover at Vancouver Airport. The U.S. alleges that she violated its sanctions on Iran. American prosecutors want her extradited to face charges in the United States. Meng's detention has infuriated China and ratcheted up tensions now between Beijing and Ottawa. Katie Simpson got some insight into those conversations.
China is angry, firing fresh threats directly at Canada. You asked what kind of consequences there would be, said a foreign ministry spokesman today. I can tell you in one sentence, he said, it's totally up to Canada. The pressure has the government digging in.
We are a country of the rule of law. We live up to our international obligations, and we trust our courts to do the right things.
This was not in any way a political decision. There was no political interference, as the Prime Minister has said. None at all.
But a senior source tells CBC News that message so far is not resonating in Beijing, and it appears the Chinese government does not believe Ottawa when it says it can't step in.
There's no way to
The possibility of retaliation is making the business community nervous.
The options are essentially limitless, and that's what's very concerning about this.
Beijing regularly resorts to economic retribution to settle political scores. In 2010, it banned Norwegian salmon imports after a Chinese dissident was awarded the Nobel Prize. In 2017, it took on South Korea by banning Chinese tourists from group excursions to that country after a dispute over an anti-missile system.
This cost South Korea reportedly $5 billion, given that tourism is such a significant driver there. So that's another example of something that could happen.
Leaders from Canadian industries that export to China, including canola farmers, lobster fishers, and pork producers, all tell CBC News they have not been threatened, nor have they seen a change in business. But they're watching every development closely.
Canada's plan to start free trade talks with China will likely slow or pause because of this incident. Those kinds of discussions require high-level cooperation, and there isn't much of that happening right now. Katie Simpson, CBC News, Ottawa. Now, Meng's bail could come down to who vouches for her. The Crown says she's a flight risk. Her husband promises she isn't. Briar Stewart has the view from the court.
A great company like Huawei, we love you. We want to make our voice over here.
It was part community rally, part media circus, whenever court and the bail hearing for Meng Wanzhou was on break.
If Canada let her go to US, so yeah, I think her life would be in risk.
As the high-powered Chinese executive sat in the prisoner's box again today, an even larger crowd turned out to watch, including this woman who knows Meng personally.
She's a very good person, very low-key. So I think the Huawei, all the leadership, they all have a very good, a good reputation.
Meng's lawyer said if she's released, she would hire a private surveillance firm. The owner testified that 2 security officers and a driver from his company would escort her wherever she goes. She would also be required to wear an electronic monitoring bracelet. Legal experts say, given Meng's personal circumstances, bail would likely be very high.
Because she's not ordinarily resident in the country, the judge, in my opinion, would require that the accused deposit a substantial amount of money.
Mung's husband, who was also in court today, said he would be willing to put up $1 million cash, as well as their 2 Vancouver homes, for a total of $15 million. None of it satisfied the Crown, who wanted to see a $7.5 million cash bail and worried that the electronic monitoring system could be hacked. I'm not suggesting that this would happen, he said, but I'm saying that there would be the potential ability to compromise the system, given he says that Mung is the CFO of a telecommunications giant. The judge didn't make a decision on bail today because there's still one outstanding issue. Mung's lawyer wanted her husband to act as a surety, basically someone that would ensure she would abide by bail conditions. But he isn't a resident of BC, and it's not clear whether he could remain in the country throughout the entire extradition process, which could take years. Briar Stewart, CBC News, Vancouver.
Well, the numbers are jarring. An unprecedented report by the Ontario Human Rights Commission shows that a Black person is 20 times more likely to be shot dead by Toronto police than a white person.
The data proves that Black people are overrepresented in police use of force cases that result in serious injury and death.
So here's the breakdown. Black people make up about 8.8% of Toronto's population, but they make up almost 30% of all cases where police used force and the suspect was seriously hurt or killed. And if you just look at the cases where the victim died, they're Black 60% of the time.
The size of these racial disparities in and of themselves justify serious research and policy attention.
But Toronto Police and its labor union say the numbers just tell one narrow part of the story. Each case is different.
To be assessing the data, again, without context, doesn't give you a robust or an understanding of what's the circumstance, what is really going on. So I think this is a disservice to having a broader discussion.
Still, the force says it accepts the Commission's recommendations, including looking at ways to collect and report better race-based statistics. But what about the community? As the CBC's Olivia Stefanovich tells us, for many, the numbers simply back up what they've known all along.
Now, for this part, I'm going to need your help. I'm going to say a word, and you're going to say, gone.
These young men are finding their voice at a public speaking workshop, using their racial identity to craft their message.
Worthlessness. Gone. Powerless.
Gone. You can see the badge.
We asked them about racial profiling and discrimination at the hands of Toronto police.
It's just getting worse. And the problem right now, like we were talking about, the community doesn't trust the police. So no, it's no matter, like, there's no more serve and protect. We don't care about that no more. Yeah. It's like I'm scared for my life.
When you're driving around, you see an officer, you get that bubbly feeling inside of you. It's like, I haven't done anything wrong, but because, you know, that whole race has been stigmatized as a bad race.
For so long,
that feeling is also familiar to Randall Ajay. He says he's been stopped so many times without explanation.
My mind just starts racing. You know, I'm just in this space of trepidation where I'm like scared because you just don't know. You know what I mean? You just don't really know what could happen.
Data collected from an interim report by the Ontario Human Rights Commission only confirms what these women say their community has long faced.
I'm dating myself back 35 years. 40 years, nothing has changed. If you're Black and you're wearing a hoodie or you're wearing jeans that's a little bit too low, you're going to be discriminated against and you're not going to get help.
For me, is when I hear the siren, who did they get or who did they hurt?
We don't know how they're going to function, how they're going to be productive adults when they grow up because they are carrying all the trauma.
Sometimes it takes a tragedy to mend relationships, but we don't have to wait for bad things to happen to be repaired what is already broken.
As much as there is mistrust here, there are ideas on how to make it better.
Just having police, even police with diversity, that's very important.
Police officers are public servants. They're meant to serve. So if we cannot have a say in terms of who becomes a police officer, then I don't know if that's really a servant.
Next, the inquiry will look at carding, police culture and training. But for these young men, real change can't come soon enough. Olivia Stefanovich, CBC News, Toronto.
Now, that racial disparity highlighted in today's report is something we've seen across the country when police have used deadly force. Earlier this year, CBC compiled a database of fatal encounters with police over a 17-year period. Take a look at some of the numbers. In Montreal, Black people made up about 8.5% of the population, but they represented nearly 19% of people who died in interactions with police. And in Calgary, where the South Asian population was just under 7%, they made up nearly 16% of people in fatal police encounters. And it's a similar story in other major Canadian cities. Katie Nicholson has a closer look at some of those police shootings and what's being done now.
Andrew is really a very loving father.
If ever there were a time Sinos Timon thought his nephew would be shot, he figured it would have been when he was a child soldier in Sudan.
Not in a peaceful place like Toronto.
Loku, a father of 5, was fatally shot by Toronto police after refusing to drop a hammer. Loku is just one of the cases of fatal encounters Canadians have had with police, analyzed by CBC News. From 2000 to 2017, more than 460 cases of Canadians killed in interactions with police. In the national snapshot, Caucasians represented nearly half the victims in the database, 46%, which makes sense. Canada's population is overwhelmingly white, 78%. But our analysis found in parts of the country, 2 distinct groups were overrepresented, Black and Indigenous people. While Black people in Toronto make up about 8% of the population, they represented nearly 37% of the victims. And in Winnipeg, Indigenous people represent roughly 11% of the population, but account for nearly 2/3 of victims. People like Craig McDougall, the 26-year-old, had a knife in one hand and a phone in the other, talking to his girlfriend when police opened fire. Lawyer Corey Sheffman represented the McDougall family when the province looked into his death.
According to the inquest, Craig McDougall died because the police did what they thought they needed to do. According to Craig's family, according to the people who knew Craig, Craig died because he was a First Nations man in the wrong place at the wrong time.
While the numbers paint a bleak picture, Sinos Timon says at least they have people talking.
To understand that these issues are happening and be able to talk and discuss it with open-minded as a community.
And that discussion is now happening at a national level. Since CBC published Deadly Force, our data has been used by academics and police investigative bodies. It's even being used in a public inquiry into law enforcement underway in Quebec. Katie Nicholson, CBC News, Toronto.
The news this fall that Tori Stafford's killer, Terry Lynn McClintock, had been transferred to an Indigenous healing lodge sparked public and political outrage, forcing a review of the entire system. Now, Rodney Stafford says his daughter's other killer was moved out of maximum security 9 months ago. Salima Shivji has his story.
Yeah, and this is how I found about Michael Rafferty being transferred to medium security through a letter.
Rodney Stafford can't contain his frustration today.
I'm quite enraged, really angry, upset at the fact that I feel like I'm being slapped in the face by Correction Service Canada.
He just found out that the man convicted of kidnapping and killing his daughter, Tori, was moved from this maximum security prison to this medium security facility back in March. Somehow, Stafford wasn't told until today.
When your notification status was suspended,
Corrections Canada didn't have the right number to get in touch from late 2016 until this past August, but he says that's no excuse.
The one attempt they tried at trying to contact me didn't work, so they just gave up. Who gives a crap?
The news comes just months after the other person convicted in Tori's death, Terry Lynn McClintock, was transferred to a healing lodge, a move eventually reversed after mounting pressure. It's not clear why Rafferty was moved when he was, but on average, first-degree murderers stay in maximum security for at least 2 years. Rafferty was sentenced more than 6 years ago. McClintock spent 4 before being moved to medium in 2014.
Looks like I'm going to be fighting to have 2 people put back into maximum security prison. They're child killers and they deserve to be behind bars, if anybody does.
From Corrections Canada today, a statement saying offenders are placed in facilities appropriate to their security and program needs.
Is Michael Rafferty behind bars where he belongs, or is he in a cushy healing lodge somewhere in the woods?
I will examine the facts of this case to ensure that all the proper rules and procedures have been followed.
The minister's office got back to us tonight to say the prison Michael Rafferty is in is secure, fenced in, and specializes in dealing with sex offenders, and that the #1 priority of Canada's correctional system is public safety. Salima Shivji, CBC News, Ottawa.
Turning now to a dramatic development in Britain's increasingly complicated divorce from the EU. Parliament was to have voted on Prime Minister Theresa May's Brexit deal tomorrow, but now that's just not happening.
I've listened very carefully to what has been said in this chamber and out of it. But while there is broad support for many of the key aspects of the deal,
and with that painfully obvious lack of support, May called off tomorrow's crucial parliamentary Brexit vote, saying she'd only lose.
We will therefore defer the vote scheduled for tomorrow.
May cited the deep divisions over how to handle the Northern Ireland border issue as her reason, but that's really only part of it. Brexit hardliners hate the deal she put together, accusing her of negotiating little more than continued EU membership with fewer benefits. May's decision today has only amplified the exasperation over all of this.
How long can you stay in power?
It's not clear when the parliamentary vote will happen, but May has given a deadline of January 21st. And Nala Ayed is just outside 10 Downing Street. Nala, we know that people are frustrated, but what does this mean for Theresa May's government?
Well, for the moment, the government survives, at least in the short term. And obviously that was part of the calculation today. And certainly it's one of the few things that the Conservatives agree on at the moment, which is the need to prevent the Labour Party from forming the next government. The vote also gives Theresa May a reprieve, because if that vote had gone ahead tomorrow, Rosie, they probably would have cost her job. Now, it still may do that eventually, because the opposition is promising that a no confidence vote is still an option. But for the moment, nearly 3 years after that Brexit vote, she gets another crack at this. She didn't give a date for the next parliamentary vote, but if she pushes it close enough to the deadline, she may be able to persuade yet more MPs to vote for it after all, out of fear of the unknown.
And what about the divorce itself? What does it mean for Brexit?
Well, it depends what she's able to get out of the European Union, and it seems that there's not much flexibility there. The president of the European Council, Donald Tusk, tweeted today that while they're ready to help the UK ratify the deal, they're not interested in renegotiating it. So we need to see what exactly that looks like. If enough change or tweaking happens to get a new deal or an amended deal through the House of Commons, then Brexit proceeds as planned. If not, then really we're back to the ambiguity that we had earlier today before the vote was delayed. And that means that all those options that we've been talking about for weeks now are back at play. And that includes a no-deal Brexit, another referendum, or possibly a general election. Rosie.
All right, Nala Ayed in London tonight. Thank you.
And now let's bring you up to speed on some of the other stories we're keeping an eye on tonight, starting with a candlelight vigil near Toronto for a teenager found dead last week.
Ronnie was a good kid, and you couldn't say anything bad about him, right? Nothing. You couldn't say anything bad about him. And I'm still in shock because of what happened.
Friends and family of Riley driver Martin gathered to remember the 14-year-old. His body was found Friday morning near his high school in Mississauga. Many of his classmates have been hit hard by the tragedy. The school has brought in grief counselors and therapy dogs to help students cope. 2 brothers, both 20 years old, have been charged with second-degree murder. Omar Khadr is asking for a Canadian passport. The former Guantanamo Bay detainee will be back in court this week trying to get changes to his bail conditions. Khadr says he wants to travel to Saudi Arabia to perform the Hajj, a pilgrimage to Mecca. He also wants permission to speak with his sister, who at one time was investigated for helping al-Qaeda but never charged. The bail conditions are in place while he appeals war crime convictions by a U.S. military commission.
Ahead tonight on The National, David Saint-Jacques reflects on his first week in space and the emotional moment he says that he will never forget.
Also, after weeks of protests and violence, the French president addresses his country in prime time and admits he was wrong.
And it's one of Canada's largest unsolved mass murders. Who blew up a Canadian airliner, killing everyone on board? We'll have Ian's in-depth investigation into the suspects, the bomb, and the mystery.
CBA 21, do you read? CBA 21, do you read?
You know, people talk about twisted wreckage. Well, this is it. This is what it looks like.
And this is just one of many pieces.
Somebody did this.
Yeah.
How does that change things?
The French president sought to reassert control tonight, addressing the nation in an attempt to end weeks of violent anti-government protests. Emmanuel Macron admitted that the anger is deep and justified, and he offered relief for struggling workers and pensioners. Thomas Dagla now with Macron's dramatic reversal.
French TV aired a live pre-show for hours ahead of the president's speech. The way sports networks hype a championship game. Yes, in France, there's Super Bowl-level interest in how Emmanuel Macron digs himself out of this crisis. At 8 p.m. sharp came the president's prime-time address.
Je prends ma part de cette responsabilité. Il a pu m'arriver de vous donner le sentiment que ce n'était pas mon souci, que j'avais d'autres priorités.
It's a rare about-face from a president who vowed to push through reforms and never give in to the street. After weeks of protests for lower taxes and higher wages and pensions, tonight those same yellow vest demonstrators were glued to their screens, hoping for concessions aimed at the working class, even as Macron showed them his golden desk accessories.
Mon seul souci, c'est vous. Mon seul combat, c'est pour vous.
The president promised them a 6.5% increase in the monthly minimum wage and the cancellation of a tax hike for the lowest earning pensioners. The question now is whether that will calm their fury. I fear that some yellow vests will be satisfied with these little crumbs, she said. Me, personally, I'll be out there again tomorrow. TV News went into full post-game analysis mode, complete with a yellow vest protester on set for commentary.
Pourquoi avoir attendu si longtemps?
Why did the president wait this long, he asked. It just might be that people dressed like him now have a higher profile than ever before. Thomas Dagla, CBC News, London.
Up next on The National, who put the bomb on the plane? Why would someone blow up a Canadian airliner? The case of Canadian Pacific Airlines Flight 21 was never solved. Tonight, after months of digging and his podcast, Uncover, Bomb on Board, Ian's investigation sheds new light on the case.
I asked him point blank, I said, do you know who did it? And he said, we have a very good idea who the responsible person was.
A bomb placed on a Canadian passenger plane. A mass murder with no apparent motive. It's a story that many people in this country have never heard of. For the last 7 months, the National and CBC podcasts have joined forces to dig into this cold case. And tonight, the results of our investigation into the mystery of Canadian Pacific Airlines Flight 21.
OSP, what is your destination?
CB21, Vancouver, do you read? CBA21, do you read? CBA21, do you read?
Here is the CBC National News. A Canadian Pacific airliner has crashed in rugged country in the Caribou district of British Columbia.
Less than an hour after takeoff, an explosion sends CP-21 plummeting to the ground. All 52 people on board killed.
There's been much speculation on what caused the crash. A man on the range at the time says the plane appeared to blow up in the air.
It looked like the plane just falls straight from the sky because there was trees in front of the wings, behind the wings, and between the whole plane.
A criminal act committed by someone on board, and still no answers to two agonizing questions. Who did it and why? 53 years later, it remains one of Canada's largest unsolved mass murders.
How many trips do you think you made before you finally found the site?
I would say we probably were at least a couple of full weeks hiking through bush. This is the turnoff.
I keep seeing something and I think that's it.
You will know when you see it.
Dee Dee Henderson was just 5 years old when her father was killed in the crash.
Basically, it's all through here. And then this was where the main body of the plane came down.
Coming to the site where so many lost their lives is haunting.
You know, people talk about twisted wreckage. Well, this is it. This is what it looks like.
And this is just one of many pieces.
Somebody did this.
Yeah.
How does that change things?
Well, I mean, if it's an accident, there's nothing you can do about it. But not being able to know who did it means you have no place to even focus your anger. I, for one, will never forget this because I lost a dear loved one in it, and so many other families too.
After all these years, so many questions remain. So 5 decades later, we're setting out to see if modern analysis can shed new light on a case long closed. We start where CP21 began, Vancouver Airport. In the 1960s, there was virtually no security. Bags weren't screened, visitors could walk right up to the planes. You can see how anyone could have brought almost anything on board.
It is so nice to meet you.
Shirley Whitehouse and her daughter Carmen Kim have thought a lot about who is able to get on CP21.
Do you remember how close you were able to get to the plane on that day?
You know, they didn't have any security.
Yeah.
Shirley is 82 years old now. She was in her 20s when she came here to say goodbye as her mother boarded CP21.
It's a long time ago.
The trauma the family has suffered from the crash led Carmen to do some investigating of her own.
These are letters from my Freedom of Information from the National Archives. And then
Years ago, she filed a request for information. What came back, these RCMP reports from 1965, astonished her.
I was shocked because you see all these TV shows, closed case, you know, pull out all these cold cases and stuff like that, and I'm thinking, well, this is reality. How come it's not been dealt with?
Inside the files, the RCMP list their 4 main suspects. A gambler who purchased big life insurance policies moments before boarding. He told his wife he was traveling for work, but police couldn't find where that work was. A man who was traveling with a handgun and described by his psychiatrist as having a deep madness toward the world. An explosives expert with a criminal record of violent offenses. And a young man described as a loner and a gun enthusiast with a large collection of gunpowder. What the documents don't say, of course, is which one may have planted the bomb.
So you want this solved?
Oh, absolutely. I think Mom does too. It would be nice to know, you know, or why they did it, at least.
This is where our investigation picks up. We start by filing new requests for all documents related to the RCMP and Transport Canada's investigations.
I mean, the new documents were even more definitive about the fact that the bomb.
We comb through thousands of pages, pulling out information on the suspects and the bomb, including an analysis of the blast damage to the rear of the plane. Police conclude the bomb was likely made of dynamite or gunpowder and was placed on the bathroom floor in clear sight. That means it was almost certainly put there by someone shortly before the bomb went off. We take the material we've gathered to 3 experts, someone who teaches about explosives and blasting, a criminologist, and a former aviation crash investigator. First up, Larry Vance.
So let's take a look at the film that CBC took the day after. You can take a look at this.
There had been lightning in the area when CP-21 went down, and some family members wondered if there was any chance that something other than a bomb was the cause.
And looking at it through modern-day crash investigators' eyes, what do you think of their conclusion that an explosive device of some sort brought down this plane?
I think it's absolute. This adds up pretty quick to being a criminal event perpetrated by one or more people. That's the easy part. Now, when you get into a criminal investigation, you get into the whodunit.
That's where our next expert comes in. Mike Arnfield, a criminologist and former police officer.
He insists on taking this Canadian Pacific Airlines flight by himself.
He now teaches at Western University in London, Ontario. We've hired him to review the evidence.
We know that a passenger set off the bomb, and 4 are left remaining that cannot be eliminated because they all, in theory, had either motive or opportunity to carry this out.
Mike zeroes in on the same 4 passengers as the RCMP: Stephen Colazar, Douglas Edgar, Paul Vandermeulen, and Peter Brownton.
The idea that these 4 men with their histories would be on a flight with 52 people on board.
It's uncanny. It's something out of a Hitchcock film. Strangers on a Plane, we could call this.
Mike will also analyze the case using a new computer algorithm that compares it to similar crimes. While he looks over the file, we head back to BC to get a better sense of what investigators were thinking in 1965. Ken Leyland's late father led the investigation for Transport Canada. His father kept meticulous diaries and a secret that he revealed to Ken decades after the crash.
I asked him point blank, I said, "Do you know who did it?" And he said, "We have a very good idea who the responsible person was."
And you must have asked him who?
I remember him saying that this particular individual was very much a loner, didn't belong to any organizations with the one exception of the Black Powder Shooting Club at the mine where he worked in Cassiar.
He's describing Peter Brownton, and there's more.
He went to the Vancouver Public Library and checked out a book on Douglas piston-powered airliners, of which DC-6Bs were one.
So we head to the library to see if we can track that book down.
This is a selection of the material that we have that dates back to the 50s and 60s.
We look through books from that era, but can't find anything that points to a culprit.
There's nothing in here that would give somebody a clue as to how to bring down an airplane.
This may be a sign that what Ken Leyland's father heard about the evidence was not entirely accurate. But what we do know is that Brownton's connection to gunpowder made him a leading suspect because police believed gunpowder was part of the bomb.
There's a saying in forensics and in explosives investigations that the design of a bomb is limited only by the imagination of the bomber.
When we come back, we'll test how easy it was to build that bomb. What we find could help us determine who did it.
2, 1.
We're headed inside a quarry near Peterborough, Ontario, to better understand the bomb that brought down Canadian Airlines Flight 21, killing all 52 people on board.
I think one of the surprising things for me is that there's still some pretty fundamental questions about the explosion that brought down CP-21. What kind of explosive was used? Who had the sophistication to put together that bomb? And so I hope we get some of those answers today.
Bill Smith is a professional blaster.
So 1965 was a long time ago, 53 years ago. So first of all, getting black gunpowder back then wouldn't have been tough, I guess.
Not an issue. You would just buy it at probably your local store.
And what about dynamite? How hard would that be to get, do you think?
The same deal. You go in and as long as you were over 16, I believe you bought that right over the counter, right? You go buy dynamites, blasting caps. Farmers did it all the time.
All right, well, let's blast some rocks.
All right, let's go.
Early in their investigation, the RCMP determined dynamite and/or gunpowder created the blast.
Because black gunpowder definitely was in the area of the explosion.
We're replicating the test the RCMP did in 1965. First, Bill prepares the dynamite bomb.
Now this is just black powder.
And just like the original investigation, we also use a metal pail and car tire to simulate the toilet in the plane.
Okay, here we go. Charge is on. Okay, ready for the count.
3, 2, 1, 0.
Wow. Holy
smoke.
How high do you think that tire went? 30 meters?
Yeah.
Guess it's not too surprising that dynamite would do what it just did, but that is a huge blast. We're going to get the all clear soon, and we'll see close up what it did, and see there. We can head down and take a look.
What is interesting is the amount of black residue we have left.
What do you mean the pail is gone? Like,
gone.
But where are the pieces? Wow. I mean, we're having a hard time actually finding fragments of the pail, and can't help but think about the debris of the plane when you look at this, and there's no question that that explosion would be enough to blow a hole in the wall of the plane, no question.
We repeat the same test with gunpowder.
That's a lot of kick.
It also creates a violent explosion.
What does this tell you about who might have made this bomb?
It wouldn't take a lot of expertise to do what we did today on a plane.
Any of the 4 suspects could have created this bomb. So were police wrong to focus on Stephen Kolazar because of his expertise with explosives?
What would his motive be?
We have no known motive. Here's a guy, he's got kids, he's got a good job, he's respected at work, he's got a troubled past, but when we look at hundreds of other acts of mass murder since then, his age for the use of a bomber-initiated device is way off, far too old statistically.
If Kolazar didn't have an apparent motive, who did? We move on to Douglas Edgar. The large insurance policies he bought just hours before boarding the flight raised suspicions. Turns out in the 5 years preceding CP21, there were 3 other suspected mass murder suicides on planes, and financial troubles and insurance were reported to be the motive in each of those cases. But keep in mind, buying insurance before flying was not uncommon in the 1960s. Policies were sold at airports, even out of vending machines. Douglas Edgar bought 4 policies worth the equivalent of about $1 million today. Enough for this gambler to leave his family financially well off. Edgar's daughter Leah was 9 when her father died.
Leah Edgar, it's a pleasure.
Yeah, really nice meeting you. Thanks.
More than 50 years later, she's come from California to make it clear she is certain her father was not the bomber. She says there was nothing sinister about the insurance he bought at the airport that day.
And I can even remember him giving me some of the change and putting it into the machine. He had me do it because a prize came out, a bundle of papers.
One of the things that came up in the investigation, as you know, is that the police couldn't verify where he was headed to. So what do you make of that?
He was a gambler.
So he may not have wanted to have disclosed all the details of where he was going to be ending up in Prince George.
And he could get a day job. And in the logging camps, they would play cards at night.
So here's someone who makes a living by deceiving other people through card games. It would have been intuitive for him if money and leaving his family better off was somehow the motive. It would make sense to take out a conventional policy.
Mike says someone killing themselves to provide insurance money for others is unlikely to be the sole motive for mass murder.
Likelihood then that he did this?
I'm prepared to eliminate him entirely.
We're now down to 2 suspects. Paul Vandermeulen may have had 2 motives. Once before the flight, he paid a large premium for life insurance. And then there's this. His psychiatrist described him as having a deep madness toward the world. Then there are the contradictory clues of what Vandermeulen took on board. First of all, a handgun, which one expert told us could perhaps have been used to prevent someone from foiling his plan. But he also had a large amount of cash.
If you're going to go and demolish an aircraft and kill yourself, why are you carrying money? The same things that make him suspicious and mysterious actually are exculpatory and exclude him.
Still, there's enough here that we can't eliminate Vandermeulen. And that brings us to Peter Brownton, Mike's top suspect.
Described as a loner, worked at a mine, he's into firearms, he is an armorer at actually the Cassier Mine Gun Club. So he has access to gunpowder. He has access to dynamite. He has a facility where he can test explosives without raising suspicion.
And there's more deep inside the police files. Investigators say that just days before the crash, Brownton told his mother there was something dangerous in his room.
And this is interesting because she later denies that conversation when she's interviewed by police. Maybe it was a note explaining his rationale for doing this, a suicide note of some kind. Maybe it was the device. We don't know.
We searched for relatives of Peter Brownton and finally connected with his sister, Joan Hodgins. She agreed to talk to us. So we know somebody did it.
There's no way. That's just not anything he would do, I'm sure. In my heart, I know that. He wouldn't do that. He was a happy kid. He liked to read, he liked his music, he loved hockey, he loved his nieces and nephews, and he was very good to his mom. Now you tell me if a person like that would do such a terrible thing to his family.
Why would he do this?
That's the question everyone asks about every mass murderer.
Somebody may have some insight into who did this.
Someone may be holding the key to all this, and we don't know what that is.
2 suspects and 1 exhaustive investigation, and yet no overwhelming proof either was the culprit. But we do know someone on board this plane planted the bomb. More than 50 years later, as family and friends of the victims get older, time for someone to come forward with the key to this mystery is running out.
Okay, if you still have questions and want to know more, I sure do. You can find more of our investigation online. Go to cbc.ca/bomb-on-board. You can read some of those original police documents that Ian was showing us and hear from one of the first people to arrive at the crash scene. And you can find out how to get in touch if you have information on the case. Of course, you can also listen to the 6-part podcast. It's in the Uncover series, Bomb on Board. It's already been downloaded millions of times.
Now we'll look at some other developing stories we are watching tonight. An accused Russian spy appears to have reached a plea deal with U.S. prosecutors.
Now I'm the board member of the Right to Bear Arms.
Maria Butina is suspected of trying to infiltrate the NRA and influence U.S. policy towards Russia before the 2016 election. Until now, she maintained that she was simply a foreign student interested in bettering relations between the 2 countries. According to a court filing, she'll change her plea this week. This video shared on Facebook is getting a lot of attention and a lot of criticism. It shows officers grabbing a baby from his mother during an arrest in Brooklyn at a social services center. Police were called after she allegedly refused to leave. Right now, she's still in police custody. Her son with a family member, and the NYPD is also carrying out a review of what happened. As we get closer to Christmas, Canada Post has hired 4,000 extra workers and will be making deliveries 7 days a week. That's to help cut into a backlog of 6 million packages, which follows 6 weeks of rotating labor strikes and a big jump in volume this year.
I now ask you to step forward to receive your Nobel Prizes from the hands of His Majesty the King.
Yeah, you heard it right there. Nobel Prizes were handed out today in Stockholm, and among the recipients, a Canadian, Donna Strickland, a professor at the University of Waterloo. She's a co-winner of the Nobel Prize for Physics for her work on lasers that eventually became foundational to laser eye surgery. She's just the 3rd woman to ever receive the physics prize, and her share of the prize money is about $250,000 US.
On the next episode of 22 Minutes.
Oh, baby.
What's your name? Mercy killed her snowman with a shovel.
The boys of the RCMP choir are saying.
Tuesday at 8:30 on CBC.
Everyone is getting baked on Christmas Day.
A week into his mission at the International Space Station, Canada's very own David Saint-Jacques is adjusting to life in orbit and getting used to the view. Today, he told the world what it was like to look down on Earth for the very first time, and that is our moment of the day.
Then we got to zero gravity at the engine cutoff, and then there was our first sunrise on orbit. And that was quite an emotional moment as I looked out the window and this little blue crescent starting to get brighter and brighter, and I realized, wow, this is actually the curve of the Earth. Very, very few people have had that chance to see these views on behalf of humanity, and I take this very seriously, the responsibility to absorb this and retransmit it the best I can. It is just an never-ending sense of awe looking at our blue planet. It's very touching and it's very humbling, and it makes you want to go back to Earth and help make it better.
So that's lovely, obviously, and poetic and all those, you know, stunning things. However, there's other things that he's having to get used to up there. One that I never thought of, struggling with congestion. Lack of gravity means that there's no force to pull your blood through your body. I didn't realize this. So his head was getting puffy at one point, and he's adapting at this stage. Weird.
Well, and the lack of gravity, I mean, it introduces all kinds of weird things, right? I mean, just being able to figure up from down, like, it's funny to think that it might be an arbitrary decision. What's the floor one morning? What's the ceiling the next? Or maybe it's neither. Maybe a wall becomes... Anyways, it's all very bizarre.
Yeah, I'll just watch from here, I think.
Yeah, it must be quite the experience. That's The National for this December 10th. Have a good night.
Good night.